It's as if nature is like some sort of Gestapo figure who's going, he's got his British prisoner of war, and there's his beautiful lunch, and he hurls it into a septic tank and says, "There, go and enjoy it now." And it's these strange, damp, tufted areas of the human body that it just seems so bizarre, that matted and bedewed with strange moistures and peculiarities. Again, things could have been organised better, one feels, and that's all.
Twitter, we need to do.
Twitter. Yes, now we have a particular thing to say about this, don't we? Because you very sweetly asked if I would judge your competition.
We did, and the competition was to find a beautiful tweet, the most beautiful tweet of the last month.
Yeah.
And what are the criteria by which you judge beauty in this?
Unbelievably difficult. For those not aware, a tweet is a statement given out into a social networking internet service or mobile phone service, but whose only rule really is that it must be 140 characters, that's to say letters that include numbers and spaces and punctuation marks. So you've got a very small canvas on which to create your work of beauty. One of the most obvious and first uses of Twitter for any aesthetic purpose was obviously haikus, because you could often fit a haiku into that. And I sort of felt, gosh, there are going to be some things that are lyrical and some things that will be well-shaped. But I wanted not to reward the sort of self-conscious tweeness that went into it, the poetical rather than the poetic. And the really poetic can be quite modern and also can be funny. I mean, wit can be beautiful because it expresses and distills an idea. And I'm particularly fond of the kind of wit that the Chestertonian type, where some abstract proposition that sounds so laudable is tested against reality. One of my favourite quotations of Chesterton is when he was writing about feminism, and he said, well, I'm sure we're all in favour of women being given the power and the respect that they deserve. He said, but I read an article the other day that began, "At the trumpet call of Ibsen and Shaw, modern woman rises to take her place in society." And I thought, well, that's very good news. Let's see if it's true. Modern woman. Well, there's Mrs. Carter, who comes in to clean my flat on Tuesdays and Thursdays. She lives in Tooting. She has 4 children herself, and she's alive now. She's a modern woman. And she looks after the houses and scrubs the floors in my apartment block and in many others. And she's a very busy woman. And if I say to myself, at the trumpet call of Ibsen and Shaw, Mrs. Carter rises to take her place in society, I realise the statement is not only nonsense, it's actually rather wicked nonsense. And that to me, that's beautiful as well as witty. It is the idea that you can make grand abstract statements, but unless you test them against an absolute reality, which is sort of what comedy does, but also what good art does, they are valueless. And so this is just a way of saying I think this is what my winner does. It's not the greatest, I don't expect to fall off your seats laughing, nor is it, euphonious. I mean, if you ask someone to be beautiful in 140 words, what are you asking for? Something Keatsian, some beautiful, sensuous and sensual line. I think that would be inappropriate to Twitter. So I think I gave a number 1 and number 2. Are they up visible? The runner-up, which is sort of sweet in its way, I think. How true. Isn't that nice? Fair enough. I think that's a good sentiment, well expressed, simple and clear. Yeah. I'm not sure that a Darwinian would say that is actually a good use of because in terms of logic, but it's very beautiful. And the winner is... I like that. Did you like that? It's good, isn't it? So, well done, him. Yeah. I think it is a beautiful way of saying, don't use phrases like build another world. This is our world. we must make of it what we must make of it. If you start being utopian to the point of thinking that there's an answer out there rather than in here, then you're very wrong. That's all. I think it's quite a good... Yeah.
Who would like to offer a U?
Uppingham, my goodness. That's rather scary and very quick. Are you all hugging to yourself V's, W, X's and Y's and Z's? Because that was jolly quick. Uppingham is a reference to a school that gave me a part of my so-called education back in the day. It was an old foundation. It was founded in the, way back when, in the Elizabethan era. But like many schools of its kind, it had a pioneering Victorian headmaster in the shape of one Edward Thring, who founded the Headmasters' Conference, which is still to this day the body which adjudges what is or is not a public school. If the headmaster is a member of the Headmasters' Conference, it's a public school, i.e. a private school, of course. Uppingham was, it is resolutely middle class, middle brow. It is not a place for intellectuals, necessarily, although some of its old boys have been rather splendid, how would you describe them, randy perverts. Ronald Furbank, Norman Douglas, I don't know if these names mean much to you. They were, in the day, rather celebrated. Norman Douglas's great book, South Wind, is still a masterpiece of that sort of style of decadent writing. He himself was expelled from island to island, from Ischia to Capri, for interfering with young boys and young girls as well. He was a most disreputable individual, but in those days you were allowed to be, and he was considered stylish. Ronald Furbank, of course, was, gave rise to a sort of breadth of marvellous exotic literature, much liked by Evelyn Waugh and others. Flecker, James Elroy Flecker as well, who wrote Hassan, which is a rather fine work of sort of mystical Orientalism, as it would be called. Not that Edward Said would welcome the title. And who else? Oh, William H. Pratt. He was an Uppinghamian, better known as Boris Karloff. And the Campbells, Malcolm and Donald Campbell. But generally speaking, it produced what you might consider as amiable duffers. It was, sport and being good and probably walking slowly towards machine guns in any war that was going to come, with a smile on your face and a cheerful disregard for your own safety was really what it trained you for. But I was expelled from it, and I had nothing but the most fond memories of very nice people running it. But I think the fact is, whatever school I'd been to, whether it had been Winchester or a local comprehensive, I would have had exactly the same problems. It was the strange aura of insane adolescence that I carried around with me, and the troubled nature of my mind and spirit, I suppose, was not made by that school, but they did their best with me. That's all I can say.
Vile Bodies.
Oh, yes. Vile Bodies. Oh, those vile bodies is the title of Evelyn Waugh's second novel, as you probably know. He wrote it, I think, in about 1928. And it's the novel in which he kind of wrote the... he wrote the society in which he had himself become embroiled, that of Mitfords and Brian Howard and Harold Acton and what were known as the Bright Young Things. And in the early part of this millennium, I wrote the screenplay and directed a film version of Vile Bodies called Bright Young Things. And it was a really interesting experience. It didn't set the box office on fire, but I'm still very pleased with the film. And apart from anything else, I'm pleased with the extraordinary cast I managed to assemble.